Dr. Mohammed Bashir, he had shown interest in this program earlier.
Okay.
When I met him, 2 weeks back I met him and I told him about this program and he was very much interested and he told me that he would like to attend some of the sessions. He is now in Assam.
Okay, very good.
In university.
In Agra?
University. Assam
University. He is in Assam University. I know.
Sir, he is in Assam University. He is in Assam University and I know him very well.
He's a professor there.
Yes, yes. So
I will share this to him also.
Sure. Yeah. I will talk with him.
That will be good. Yeah.
And if he goes and if he is interested, then obviously both of us can go from Silchar, Assam.
Okay.
Yeah. You can also talk to some other people. Gogo is joining us. You can talk to other people who are interested in that. Gogo, welcome. Welcome.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Now we are waiting for Mohammad Ali, Bauri and Diwan. I don't know what is happening with the Bauri and Diwan. Let me check. Bauri, I don't have Diwan.
Sir, today I have completed my 60th year.
Okay, 60.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations. Sastabdi, what they call Sastabdi. Congratulations. Yeah. But then it is a 60 year is the retirement period for the Assam colleges.
Yes, sir. It's 60 for colleges.
I see. And 62 for universities or 65 for universities?
65 for university.
In fact, in many colleges they have made it 65. I don't know why Assam could not make it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We have only 56 in Kerala. 56.
Yeah, Kerala is retiring people so soon. And the longevity has increased and many places are going for 70. Kerala is retiring too soon, very early.
Very early.
In West Bengal it is 65, sir.
Okay.
65, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
And there should be some uniformity in the country, at least on the age of retirement, with the age being on the...
Sir, today I invited another 4 persons from the colleges.
Yeah.
But one Prabhujuti is a very enthusiastic person. He's a professor.
He has joined.
He has joined now. He is with me with us, sir.
Yeah. He
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity, sir.
Oh, good. We wait for Mohammad Ali and Katoj. Lakshmibai College principal has not been joining. I have to check up with them. Is there some problem over it, or what is the kind of thing? I'll have to check up with them. Shall we wait for 2-3 minutes and then start? Yeah. Mohammad Ali is one of the regular. Mohammad Ali, welcome. I was waiting for you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Mohammad Ali, sir, I had sent you a message.
What watch? I sent her the message. Okay. Mauri and Vivan could join us. Katosh, I have not seen Katosh for last. Katosh also couldn't come last time. I don't have my phone with me. Well, I think Dr. Sharma, are you ready? Can we start now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, friends, let me take this opportunity to introduce Professor Atul Sarma, who was professor in the Indian Statistical Institute, and then he had been a member of the Finance Commission. He was also Vice Chancellor of Arunachal Pradesh University. He has contributed significantly in the area of public finance and developmental economics, and he is an authority in certain areas because the devolution of funds between the states and center and with a certain criteria. Education is one of that criteria, and therefore he knows how state mobilizes resources, where the resources go, and how the resources are being allocated to different fields, and particularly education. What are the guiding principles with regard to that? Professor Sharma, while being Vice Chancellor of Arunachal Pradesh University, carried out several changes in development. I had the opportunity to visit the university, and I found that development took place during his period. Initiate the presentation on, although I told him that we can speak on theory, but he said I'll be talking about the developmental economics and finance, and particularly the other issues which are important with regard to finance. So, Dr. Sharma, welcome. You can put your video and audio on, and I will put our videos on.
Okay. Shall I start then?
Yeah, you can start.
Good evening to everybody. It's a great pleasure for me.
Good evening, sir.
An opportunity to
Good evening, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I'm indeed delighted to have got this opportunity to address to you people who are very senior and experienced in education administration, and you're so experienced that you know a lot more than what I would be knowing about some of the things. I'm grateful to Professor G.D. Sharma, who happened to be my close friends for a long time. He has given me the opportunity to interact with you. I'll make a brief presentation around, say, 8 questions. Basically, what I titled the talk is Higher Education and Economic Development. And being an economist, all of you, I don't think all of you are economists, no? All the participants are, what is your background, academic background? Not
So I am my background is I am from economics.
Not all, sir.
Okay. So, not all of them, all of you are economists, but my presentation should not be very difficult. So I title it as Higher Education and Economic Development. So I have with my talk around 8 questions, 8 issues basically. One begin first is the paradigm shift. I'll explain all that, but let me say first the issues that I'll be discussing. Number two is that what are the characteristics of higher education? And third is what are the universal trends in higher education, and how these trends have impacted some research in certain new areas, and also raise a number of controversies. I'll share with you. And then what is the relationship between investment on education and economic development? And that will be a little technical, but I'm not going to the technicalities. I'll make a verbal presentation. And then I talk about what are the sources of funding higher education, what are methods of mobilizing resources. And finally, how to allocate the resources for higher education. Because government, when they prepare a budget, they face with numerous competing needs, demands. So how do they tackle that? And also give a little background about the Indian situation while at the beginning. So these are the 8 questions, 8 issues around which I'll be talking and I'll be interacting with you. After my presentation, you please raise any questions, you can discuss them. In the Indian context, initially, education was a state subject. And in 1976, during the emergency period, they amended the Indian Constitution. And this is put in concurrently. So as you know, there are 3 lists in the Constitution. One is the central list, meaning these lists are meant to demarcate the power of the center, states, and even now, even local bodies. So there's a state list, central list. So defense, for instance, is a law and order. Law and order actually state also. So defense, and then tax collection, income tax collection. Those activities, actually this allocation, I do not want to go into details, that could be a lecture itself. So there are certain areas where state government, central government can perform more efficiently. So those subjects have been included in the central list. And the subjects in which state governments can be expected to be more efficient or they are closer to the people, they are given to included in the state list. And there is also, now there is a list for the panchayats, local bodies. We have got the 3rd level of government. But then there is a difference between the state government and local government. Because in the case of state government, they have clearly stated, give them the list and for exclusive operation for the states. But in the case of local bodies, it is that they have suggested, they have given a list of, say, for Panchayat, 29 items. But this is left to the state to pass an act in the state legislature, and you pass it on to the panchayat or local body. Similarly, they are given to the urban local bodies certain items. So I have came to this because of education also, and concurrent list. There's a list, concurrent list, where both the center and the state governments can pass laws, operate, perform. So education was initially up until 1976, it was in the state list, but after that it was transferred to the concurrent list, which means both the central government and the state governments would function or deliver services in the education. This is the kind of background in which we have got a Indian background. Now, when we started with the post-colonial period in 1951, India moved for a planned development. And there, in that development economics in that period gave a lot of thrust on physical capital, not human capital. Physical capital meaning that you have the saving rate of an economy, and this saving rate will be used for investment. And that is so the rate of the output or the development or GNP or the gross domestic product of the economy would depend on how much investment can be made, and how much can be made, investment can be made, depends on how much saving the economy has. So this is the physical focus was in the development economy. The thrust was on the physical capital. That's based on the theory of the economic theory, what is called Harold Thomas model. That is a particular, if you have certain level of savings, suppose 7% of the GDP, the 7% when there is saving that goes to the bank, or it goes to the government in the form of taxes or borrowing, and that will be invested in creation of assets like, say, constructing roads, railways, and everything. So this was the thrust was because it was believed in those days by the economists, particularly, they were arguing that if you can mobilize more savings, then you will be able to invest more, and accordingly you will be able to increase the rate of growth faster. Of course, apart from in the domestic saving, you can also expect some flows from external flows, like, say, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, or even from some developed countries. So that's the external flow, but in Indian context, these external flows did not play a very important role. By the way, whenever you feel that I am not very clear, that my expression is not very clear, then kindly let me know, I will explain. But paradigm shift took place because in 60s, there were very seminal research studies by Gary Becker and Theodore Schultz, who argued that the human capital, which also contribute to the growth of an economy. They are very impactful studies. And earlier the entire focus on the physical capital, and then after these studies, there is a understanding that even human capital can contribute to the growth and development. But if you go, actually it was in 1960s. But if you go back, actually in 1800th century, Adam Smith, who is the father of economics, in his book Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nations, he recognized the importance of education or human capital. He clearly stated that human capital can contribute to the development. But that was not, but they did not influence the development, that, development economics that developed in 1950s onwards. Then these powerful studies, impactful studies by Gary Becker, Schultz and others, generated a kind of environment where they paid a lot of attention to the importance of human capital, and they recognized that human capital can contribute to the development. And later on again, in 1970s, a little late 1970s, they talked about human development. Because human development is different from human capital. Human capital would be investment on education, skill generation. But in the case of human development, it is an investment on education, health, and related activities which empower the people. That is the basic difference. One focuses on empowerment, the other focuses on their contributions to the growth and development. So the paradigm shift took place in after 1960s, but in India it took much longer time. And they continued to focus on physical capital for a much longer time. That is why you'd see that way back in 1966, D.S. Kothari Commission was appointed on education. There's an education commission. And in that report, they recommended that 6% of GDP should be invested on education. And for long years, even now, they're both, if you put together, both central and state governments, spend around only a little more than 4% of GDP. So that clearly shows that human capital has not received as much attention as it should have. Now I come to this is the paradigm shift. So there is in the development economics, at least there is a recognition of the contributions of human capital to the development and growth. Coming to the second question about the characteristics of higher education. There are several characteristics of higher education. It's something like, question is where is higher education is a consumption or investment? If you consumption or investment, if you look into it, higher education. Consumption, and difference between consumption and the consumption investment is the consumption gives you direct satisfaction. An investment you give indirect, you invest on certain things, and then it will generate income or some services. That will, with a time lag. That is the difference. There is also a question whether education, higher education, is a public good. Public goods have got two important characteristics. One is exclusivity. That is, when you consume a thing, you cannot exclude others. Like I'll give an example. Suppose the government decides to fumigate to control contain mosquito menace. That is, it has got external data, you cannot exclude somebody from getting, when you spray or fumigate, you cannot exclude anybody. So you cannot, public goods, you cannot really charge money, since you pay for some goods only when you consume it. But you are not going to consume, you are not going to pay if others consume. That's why in the case of public goods, you cannot exclude somebody from consuming it. And the second thing is that it's a non-rivalrous. Non-rivalrous means that public goods, when you are using it and you are not exhausting that, others also can use it. So these are the two characteristics of public goods. This issue is that higher education, whether it is a public goods or it is private goods, it is because in higher education, if somebody is educated, there are a lot of studies to show that the earnings of an individual depends on the level of education. Graduates and above get more money. Illiterate people get, casual labor get low salary. So in that case, when you get more education, you develop the capacity to earn more. So, in that sense, it could be a private good. But at the same time, when you provide higher education, there's a spillover effects, because from your education, some other people also gain. So there's spillover benefits. In that sense, it is a public good. So it is a combined. Okay, coming to the development, there are many universal trends in higher education. Universal trends are the several developments have taken place all over the world. It is not that it has happened only in India or elsewhere. The one is the higher education funding is reduced, and there's an increase in the fees. That is the kind of universal trend. tuition fees have increased all over. Second is that people give funding using certain criteria, performance-based criteria. So they show the criteria, they'll set some criteria, government will set some criteria on the basis of, they'll evaluate the performance, and then they relate the grants to that performance. This is another trend that has emerged. And third is privatization. The role of private sector in education. In India, of course, from the very beginning, constitutional does not prevent investment by the private sector in education. Though, in the directive principles, until the right to education was introduced, this directive principle saying that within a specific period of, initially it was 10 years, it was extended further, that you have to provide some level of education to everybody. But that is the directive principles of state policy, which is different from other clauses of the Constitution. It is different. In the case of directive principles, if the government does not do, you can sue them. It is not justiciable. But in the case of some constitutional rights, you can, if you are denied, you can sue them in Supreme Court or other court. That's the difference between the directive principles of state policy and from the other parts of the Constitution. So, in education, the role of the private sector was not excluded. In fact, if you look at it, Tata invested, not for profit motive, of course. It is Tata who set up Tata Fundamental Institute of Research. It is Tata who set up Indian Institute of Sciences. Again, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, TISS. So these are the investment which was made by Tata, the private sector. So, but it was growing, but privatization is growing. But in the last you must have noticed, in the last couple of decades, the role of private sector, many universities, many colleges were set up not for non-profit motive, but profit motive. There's a difference between the investment made by Tata and the investment made by the private sector. So the role of the private sector increased. This is a global trend. It is not just in India. And then other development is the corporatization. The corporation has been set up for education in many places, in many countries, in the corporate sector. And internationalization. You have messed up. Most of you are principals, right? Or most of your principals?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you must have received some kind of circular from UGC saying that you should collaborate with foreign universities or encourage the foreign universities to.
Yes, sir. Yes. Right.
You should, yeah. Right. So this is the internationalization, and that has taken place after 1991. Now, the government of India, the UGC particularly, has encouraged, given some incentives also for the foreign universities to set up their camp in India. So these are the developments that have taken place, and this is a global trend. But what is the impact of this? It has impacted all research areas. This global trends have also impacted research in education. And in the they said that there are particularly three types of research. These global trends have impacted three types of research. One is the institutional economics, that is, how the institutes interact with the market, that educational institutes, how the educational institutes are interacting with the market. Suppose the government is also encouraging that, you encourage the private sector to invest, to fund some research programs. So this is the area where a lot of research has taken place. How institutions interact with the market for running their programs. Second type is the resource dependency theory was developed, which means that institutions must engage in transactions with other institutions to acquire resource. The collaborative research, for instance. So you get, if you have the collaborative research, suppose in a foreign country, they give you there are many funds are there who fund your research or certain activities. And this is called resource dependency theory. It's based on the principle that an institution must engage in transactions with other institutions to acquire resources. And third type of research area that developed is the political economy. Political economy is that when the role of market has expanded in education, and when there's a lot of privatization of education, privatization means higher fees. Here in Delhi, the fees of Osaka University for higher education are much higher than the National University of Singapore. So so most of the universities in the private sector charge very high fees. And you must be knowing that in Bangalore there's an infinite number of institutions which charge a lot of money. Many places you have particular technical education. The political economy issue came because there's a equity issue. When there are a lot of fees, there's a section of the population who are not well off will not benefit for education. It will contribute to the inequity. There's a political economy kind of research that has taken place. It is because of all these universal trends of education. Actually, it is even earlier it was also true. Long time ago, we conducted a study of the students of Indian Institute of Management. At the time I was in Ahmedabad. We tried to examine what is the background of the economic background or social background of the students who come to the Indian Institute of Management. We found more than 75% of the students are really from the higher income groups. There's an economic theory of income distribution. It is that how does the income distribution take place? Income distribution takes place the following way. A person inherits issue that is called stochastic. Inherits, if say your father happens to be very rich, so you inherit a lot of property. So, and then how do you get a more income? Then if you get exposure or if you have higher skills, if you are entrepreneur, then you acquire more. And acquire more money, wealth. So there's a relation between the stochastic element of the ownership of assets through inheritance and the skill generation. If you are from a rich family, you are likely to go to a very good institutions. And there again you can get good skill. And then you are likely to get a job, or you get an opportunity in a more dynamic or activities which give you higher earnings. And that is how the, widen. I don't want to talk about that in India. It is a terrible situation now. And income with the growth, the income distribution is becoming widening. And this is the process through which it happens. So education, if you have a lot of privatization, these are the discuss political economy, research has taken place. In terms of, for arguing, that there's no equity. There's an inequality in providing higher education. That should not die higher education. If you perpetuate inequity, then that does not contribute to the higher welfare of the economy. So these are three types of research. One is the institutional economic research. Second is the resource dependence. And third type of research is the political economy, which pursues this. Now I come to the next question, is about the relationship between investment on higher education and economic development. What is the relationship? As I have already indicated, that Gary Baker, even Adam Smith or Source, they were arguing that if you provide higher education, the earnings of the people go up. Now also you have got a lot of studies which show that higher education do increase, and certain types of higher education do even higher, larger income generate. So there is that again in a new age, now is a new age technology, where the technology has expanded so much that importance of the technical education has become very important, has increased. So that is again, that contributes, technology contributes to productivity growth. And productivity growth, I think I learned it, productivity, suppose 1 unit of capital and labor you use, 1 unit capital, 1 unit of labor. If they use a better machinery, capital is the machinery, suppose, so you invest more on capital, and then labor uses that capital, and then productivity goes up. Then that labor uses the machinery, so the one earlier he used to produce without machinery or low inefficient machinery. If you are getting machinery, your productivity goes up. If productivity goes up, your growth goes up, development takes place. And that's the process through which higher education can contribute. So there's a very strong relationship between the investment in education and development. There is a clear correlation. It is established that a correlation. But in economic theory, how it came, that capital and capital, if you have some output, if you can do, what is the contribution and capital and labor, you are employing labor and capital to produce the output. But empirically it was shown in the, what you call, growth theory, that it does not explain the entire amount. The entire output is not explained in terms of labor and capital. So something unexplained part remains, that is called residual. In later studies, Paul Romer, for instance, in new growth theory, there he has shown that education is an intangible, that residual is contributed by the skill, knowledge, in the intangible assets. That is how it came. That is how the economics also emphasize the role of education. One is that there does exist correlation, and secondly, the residual, that part which is not explained by labor and capital, there can be explained in terms of intangible assets like higher education. So there are certain, I have left out, I missed out one thing, that the global universal trends that I talked about have also raised a few controversial issues. Controversial issues are whether higher education is a public good or a private good. That is the kind of controversy. Okay? Then the other is that all these trends, global trends, have given rise to academic capitalism. Academic capitalism what? That it deals with academics, academic institutions deal with the market, and like the universities, for instance, they deal with the private sector for conducting research. Earlier, whatever research is conducted was given by the public sector, but now the large number of universities in the country, in India also, which solicit money from the private sector to carry out the research. So this is called academic capitalism. And third is educational equity, which I have already talked about it, equity that. Because of this, there is a lot of inequity in that. After this, I asked the question, okay, now we have accepted that there is a relation, there is higher education does contribute to the growth and development. But then, if you have to allocate more resources to higher education. So where do you get the resources from? There are many, it's of course you can say public exchequer. That's one source. But now, the state government in our country, since it is in the concurrent list, both the central government and state government give money to for education, provide money for the education. But apart from that, there are many several other sources. Apart from public funding, you can get income from, we are getting it, income from tuition fees. And private institution fees are very high. And then now it is a new trend to provide educational loans. Banks, public sector banks are asked to give educational loans, ATL were concessional rate of interest. There are other methods also that is not very common in India, but in some of the countries it is very common, like in US it is common. That is endowment fund. Income from endowment fund. Some of the, in America, many of the very good institutions like MIT or Stanford, they are funded by the endowment. Many of the big, very rich people, billionaires, live here, provide the fund to the educational institutions. That the endowment is given to that. Some of the alumni who become very rich give an endowment fund to their institution. This is another source of money, but this is not very common in our country. Then in campus operation also you earn income. You create certain facilities in the campus, which should be rented out to the private sector, and then you get some income. Some of the ICSR institutes in the country have got rented buildings from which they get rent, and that rent is used for running the institution. So, the income from campus managed operation. And if you have done some research where there is a patent, then you can get some royalty, and that is shared by the researcher and by the university. That is now newly introduced. Many universities have introduced a kind of sharing formula that if you have developed a patent, the royalty that you get from the patent will be shared in some proportion between the university and the research. That is also another source of funding. Another source is the self-financing courses. Many of you must have run some of the self-financing courses in your colleges. And then other thing is by reducing the cost of operation, the money saved is money earned. So there is also another source. These are the sources. These are the new sources which have to be under when the public fund is being cut. Because, I can tell you from my associates in the government, whenever there will be a crisis situation, financial fiscal crisis, then the cut will go first to the least resistance institutions like education. So, salary you cannot reduce. So your capital expenditure which is given by the government, they cut. So grants go down, development grants go down. So when it is reduced, that you have to explore the alternative methods. You have to run the self-financing courses. Then I come to another question that, okay, now we have some resources, the government has got some resources, how do they allocate it? With the government power, the government has got, the government many competing needs. They have an exchequer, they have a kitty, but the kitty also, when they get the money from taxes and other sources, they have to allocate it for various activities. But how do they allocate? How do they allocate for education, for instance? The competing needs. Everybody, every department, every ministry, every department will say that I need much larger fund for this. So how do the government allocate? In the case of education, they follow 3 types of methods. One is when you have got a development, for instance, when we have that plan, we also have, the government also, a planning commission, so made some exercise about manpower planning. See how much manpower will be required in with different skills. So that exercise is made. And on that basis, the government is giving that, look, this is the kind of demands. If your economy grows at the rate of say 7% for next 5 years, there will be a different skilled demand for this kind of the demand pattern will be given. And the government, the unit cost is this much. So accordingly, government will be asked to allocate the fund. But then there are lots of criticism against this kind of method also. So second type of method is the demand and supply. They follow. That is the demand for education. Is a pressure group. The demand to in the government there's a pressure comes from the people who have got some important connections. If the chief minister is very powerful, he will be able to get more fund from he will be able to bargain more from the central government. So this is also the demand kind of, this is the kind of way, demand which is there. The other rational principle is the cost benefit. That what is the cost of providing a particular type of education and what would be the benefits. So but it's a very lengthy exercise. It is not easy to carry out for all types of education. But theory, it is a good one because you cost you work out for every skill and you also work out the benefit. Then you see the net benefit. Whichever skills have got more benefit, to that particular skill will be allocated more. So this is how the resources are allocated. Now so I promised to discuss all these 8 issues that I have covered. So in short, just to wrap up, that education it is realized that the importance of education, it took a little more time to realize the importance of education. But now they do say discipline, the attention, they get the priority, but not as much as it deserves. It's always happening. That, as I told you earlier, the way back in 1966, Kothari Commission recommended for 6% of GDP, and to a little more than 4% has been allocated. So that indicates what the priority is. So under this constraint, the higher education is important. And thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you, Prof. Atul Sarma. In fact, why I requested Prof. Atul Sarma that see the issues in the larger context. And he has seen the issues in larger context. And very important point he has made that the development, if you look from developmental economics, the contribution of higher education, research and development is enormous. And therefore, from that point of view, there is a theory of more allocation on education or the higher education. Yeah. From the equity point of view, political economy point of view, with the country like India or many of the developed countries, which is a leveler. What we used to call education and higher education is a leveler. Leveler yes. is providing more equitous distribution of resources in the economy and society. From both point of view, the theory suggests that the more allocation should be done to education and education should be provided, higher education should be provided more resources. These are two fundamental observations which you have made and many other issues you have in terms of larger point. My own submission has been for long that higher education is not only public good in terms of the particular country or public, it is a much larger spillover effect, externalities, and it's a global public good. Global public good in the sense that I do one research which solves the problem of India. It also solves the problem of world, human being. So it's a global public good, and therefore it is impending on all the countries. That's why in 1998, when the UNESCO discussed about it, there was a debate in UNESCO that whether states should be funding to higher education or not, and that it was conscious decision taken in 1998 by UNESCO that states should fund the higher education and the school education fully, and therefore the Right to Education Act was also later on brought in our country. The point which I am trying to make it, and I'm glad that Atul has really brought out in the larger context of theory of economics and theory of funding, public developmental economics. It is from that point of view, in the last conclusion, he is made that we committed ourselves to the 6% of the, but we never honored the commitment as a nation state. So there has been some kind of a faulty system of our commitment and allocation of resources to education, or distortion in our developmental economics. In fact, what I found some time back, long back, when Bimal Jalan came in the planning commission and he started saying subsidies. He brought out a white paper on subsidies, and he included education as higher education as subsidies. I said, what is that subsidies concept? So there has been, and it is, I said it's a merited but public good. It is, after all, if you look at it, particularly in a developing economics or developing economy, this where the inequities are very high, therefore it becomes all the more important. But he came out on the merit, and within merit also subsidies, etc. That has distorted many of the investment, and that's why, in spite of all our commitment, we have been lagging in the development, either human development index you take it, or you take the development economic, the research and development, or now they talk about the IPR, all those issues. Anyway, I think let the debate be open. And now I invite 10 minutes and then invite questions. What is your choice? Please tell me.
We'll have a break, sir. Break.
Let's have a break for 10 minutes.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. We have a break, sir, please. Okay, after break we can.
Okay. We break for 10 minutes. So you can have a cup of tea, and we'll rejoin at 8:10.
Yeah.
Okay. 8:10. All of us can take break for 10 minutes, and then the question answer session would start. Prof. Atul Sarma has to leave by 8:45, so our question answer should be around that time. Okay, Prof. Atul, we can have a break for 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
जो मिस्सी रोटी होती है ना एक और बनाऊं
कल जितना कैसे
दाल भी कल वाली दाल है अभी भी अच्छी जब खा लेगा तब करना
मम्मा लोग
बोला
जो सिंगाड़े हैं ना 200 कीड़े आपने अपने टेबल पे इनको रख के बुला रहे 200 कीड़े सिंगाड़ों से आपके ये येलो चीज पे भी बैठते हैं उससे
पापा ने पानी नहीं छोड़ दिया था ना
अबे यार ये अभी भी वही कर रहा है खड़ा है इसको डेमोंस्ट्रेट लगा खत्म ही नहीं हो रहा ना ये सब
क्योंकि मैं बड़ा नहीं था
मर गया भाई मरने के बाद वो दिखा दे सब
Well, Dr. Sharma, you joined? You come from your meeting or not yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You have very excellently made presentation on this theme, and I'm very much really, in a few words, that you have systematically took into all the 8 questions and very excellently dealt with each of the questions, taking the theoretical aspect, taking the practical aspect. Great, Atul, you have done a great job. Now,
Thank you.
Let me invite our participant to raise questions. Manoj, you are ready. It seems you are ready.
Thank you, sir. At the outset, I must express my sincere thanks to Professor Sharma for his nice deliberation, and this has enriched us very well. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Sir, it has enriched us, and your transition from theoretical aspect to practical aspect is very interesting, and obviously it is much thing to learn from you, and we expect that in future also we will be getting you among us to on the equity issues in education. So, sir, my observation as well as my submission is that obviously since from the post independence period till date, our higher education system has developed a lot, and at the same time there is obviously a lot of improvement in our human resources. But sir, in a country like India, when the total population is about more than
137 crores.
137 crores. So the number of people, persons engaged in higher education or who are actually higher educated is much less than what is required or what is in comparison to other countries of the world.
Yes,
so
true.
In this respect, it is obviously true that higher education or investment in higher education is obviously increasing our economic growth, and it is developing our human resources, skill, technology, and it has a direct connection or a positive correlation with our economic growth and productivity. But sir, till now, the number of academic institutions providing higher education and the intake capacity in higher education as well as the procedure of admission, it is such that the common people are not able to afford it. So in this aspect, what is your suggestion? Whether it is to be subsidized or some sort of government policies is needed to so that these students from desiring to get higher education, particularly technical educations also, they can take admission, because those students and those youth are not able to take part in our in their product to improve their productive capacity by learning through or taking admission in higher education and institutes because of their poverty level or as well as their economic background. So in this regard, I would like to know something from you, sir. What should be our policy and what should be the government's view regarding this?
Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. Shall I take one more question
Yes,
from Usman and then both of you? Dr. Usman?
Sir, thank you, sir, for this opportunity. At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Atul Sarma ji for giving a very macro perspective on higher education in the context of our country. Sir, I have a few observations and queries. The first one is related to public expenditure in higher education, that you had mentioned in the beginning itself. So we used to say that expenditure in higher education, expenditure in education should be for 6% of the GDP. Is it not actually public expenditure? I think it is public expenditure in higher education, 6% of the GDP, not the total expenditure.
No, public expenditure.
Deceiving. It is a deceiving. Actually, many people used to discuss like this. Expenditure on education should be 6% of the GDP in that way. So that is number one. Number two, you have mentioned about directive principles of state policy, sir. So in the case of directive principles of state policy, even though education has been made, primary education has been made a fundamental right, the benefits of education are linked with many areas which come under the directive principles. For example, employment. Employment is coming under directive principles. And in our country recently, even the planning commission has been scrapped by the government because it is coming only under the directive principles of state policy. And we have only project funding, not plan funding. Because in the olden days, we had the plan funding. Now we have only the project funding. So actually the universities and colleges are finding it very difficult because of this approach. Because we submit the project and you get the money or you don't get the money. We don't have a long-term perspective. That is a second issue. Third one, you have mentioned about the academic capitalism. Sir, I would like to make it as something like academic oligopoly, not as academic capitalism, because the private universities or the bigger institutions, they are acting as oligopolies, preventing the entry of others to the field of education, especially the small institutions and the like. And fourth one, you have given a very good analysis of the financing of education. Actually, the last source of financing, that is self-financing courses, all the colleges and universities in our country, from our experience especially, we are relying on that. That is the financing of higher education, we are relying on mostly on self-financing courses. But all other sources are only very meager and limited. And we have a large exodus of students from our country abroad seeking higher education. Is it not related to the fees? Because why the students go abroad, a large number every year go abroad in search of higher education, despite all this. So these are my four queries related to this, especially the last one. I think the last one is very important for me because from our practical experience, from institutional experience, we are finding that without running self-financing courses, we cannot have an existence. Whether we like it or not, we are relying on the self-financing courses for running our institutions. Sir, thank you, sir.
Okay. Very good. All the
Thank
very
you.
good
questions. Excellent questions.
Now, yes, you go.
So, that say about the inequity part. That was a question about the poor people that Dr. Paul's question was that, right?
Yes, sir.
That, there must be affirmative action for the poor. In many countries, they have introduced a voucher system, which means that government gives voucher to the poor people below the, even in the Brazilian, Latin American countries, some of the countries have introduced that they're given the voucher that they can choose any institution where they would like to get admission. The government would pay for that. In fact, India also, they were talking about and introduced to a partial extent somewhere. But in my view, that school education has to be absolutely public. Why I'm saying this? Because in the new technology era, the rate of obsolescence of a technology, wherever you are really dealing with technology, the rate of obsolescence of technology is very fast. Many empirical results have shown that if you have a very good school education, then later your reskilling to adapt to a new technology becomes much easier. Therefore, so poor or rich, the public area is a school education, public school level education should be public, entirely in the public sector. And then, in my view, that should be the public sector. And the quality of education has to focus on the quality of education so that they're equipped to deal with that. Because everybody is not going to the higher education, but everybody should have that kind of education which enables them to adapt, reskilling them. Today the situation is you're a lifelong learner. You cannot, that once earlier that you learn something, stop it, forget about it. But today you cannot do that. You have to keep on reskilling you. So poor has to now in the higher education, poor can be there, poor people should be given access on the basis of merit. And then the Hausa system is a possible instrument to do that. Another instrument is the loan, free loan to those who want to go for higher education. So these are the ways, some affirmative actions. And of course, apart from that, we have got the scholarship for seat reservation and also economic backward class, so you can support the education. There should be a support of education. Unless in a country like ours, where is still 25% of the people are multidimensionally poor, in a country like this, you cannot depend on the market-driven institutions. There must be affirmative action, and the various instruments have to be used. Thank you. That's my answer to you. About the self-financing courses, the institutions are left to know. In fact, when I was Vice Chancellor, I myself had to introduce self-financing course. Like in mass communication, I first introduced mass communication, electronic mass communication. Because I did not have, when the fund is reduced, there are also, before the Vice Chancellor, there are only two options. Either you don't do anything, or if you have to do something, you have to try out self-financing. But then it is not equitable. If you do it is differentiating against the poor, because not everybody will be able to join a self-financing course. So there's self-financing course, in the current situation, when the fund is not adequate, you have no alternative but to go for this kind of. And there's self-financing courses, even at the cost of some iniquity that the poor get. It is differences against the poor. Do you want something more about it? Usmanji? Dr. Usman?
Yes, sir. Shall I talk? Sir, I'm Dr. Mohammad Ali, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, the presentation and talk was excellent, sir. We got
Thank you.
an insight into the finance and economics, what are required in the higher education, sir, in a very comprehensive way, sir.
Thank you.
Now, sir, my point is, as Usman sir also told, and Dr. Sharma sir also told, like the self-finance programs and even self-financing institutions are there, emerging to fill the gaps, sir, of, we can say, access. But the thing is that even though governments are sanctioning the self-financing institutions in the states, they are discriminating, sir, and in some of the policies, sir. Like, even though there is a postgraduate program in the self-finance stream in a institution, they are not giving a research center to such departments, sir. Especially in universities of Kerala, it is there. And even they are not giving the permanent affiliation, sir, to the self-financing institutions. So because of that, even though an institution crossed, suppose, 25 years of history in the self-financing stream, there is no permanent affiliation to it, and such institution is not even eligible for the 12B status. So these kind of issues are there. So I think the UGC or the central government should interfere in this kind of policy, so that the states governments are like forced to change their policies and discrimination to the self-financing institutions.
Yeah, and that is true. See, what is happening? I must tell you something. Having worked with the government, I was economic.
Usman, you have any other point?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any other point?
No, sir. But I'm okay. What about the directive principles? Because there is you mentioned about this education as a fundamental right. But many of the benefits of education, that area, these fields are coming under directive principles. For example, employment, planning, giving livelihood, all these things, they come under the directive principles. So state is gradually withdrawing from these segments also. So that means even though we made primary education as a fundamental right, there is no much use for that, because the benefits of education are not linked with that. That is my problem, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Budin Gogoi is also raising the hand. Would you like to raise some question, Budin? Then we can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You have a very clear understanding. You have a very clear understanding on the international and national trend of higher education in India, and very clearly explain the pros and cons of the higher education in India. From your delivery, I would like to know 4 points, sir, very clearly and very to the point. Number one, why after LPG liberalization policy, maybe 4 to 5% Indians become very rich, but they are not contributing for the development of higher education in the form of endowment fund. Number one. Number two, in Indian context, sir, as you are very rightly saying, like advanced countries, alumni are contributing tremendously to the growth of the higher education. Alumni contribution in India is very poor. And third one, sir, research funding. As you are very rightly saying, that higher education should be supplemented and complemented by the research grants. But in Indian context, the research grants are curtailed. And number four, sir, as you have very clearly explained about the collaboration fund raising from the collaboration. So as the Indian universities and colleges are concerned, there are a lot of collaboration inside and which international institutions, but no effective collaboration is done. These 4 points I would like to form your answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I respond?
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
First, I start with Dr. Muhammad about the self-financing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in this regard, I would like to tell you something. Having worked with the government a few times, and that in the Minister of Finance of the Government of India.
Sir.
This is, it is not the dearth of resources, really. Why I am saying this? That if you look into the budget of a year, budget of government of India carefully, you would find two things. A huge amount of resources have been foregone. And number two, you'll get that the tax areas are increasing. It is not the middle class people who are not paying the taxes, or their area is for the rich people. If the government does two things, and the revenue foregone is largely for the corporate sector. What is going on is it is a corporate-led growth. Bank capitalization, for instance, public sector. Big people get fund from the banks, they default, and eventually the taxpayers have to pay the money. So, it is like a corporate-led growth, and revenue foregone runs into thousands of crores. And similar tax areas also run into thousands of crores. If the government is really serious about mobilizing resources, they can. That is a part of a tax area which is not possible because that is which is sub judice. But large part is not sub judice. It can be collected. It is by way of streamlining the tax administration, it can be done, but it is not done. I don't know why. So it is not the dearth of resources. If the government wants to get the resources, they can get from such sources. But sometimes I say, in fact, I wrote also in one of my articles in the Assam Tribune that I have a nagging doubt about the politicians' motivation. They are very generous in terms of giving freebies, free good, free bicycle, free this, free that. But they are not willing to empower the people. If you educate the people, then they are empowered. Probably, my hypothesis that if you empower the people, they will start questioning. And so you give freebies and keep them happy, but don't try to empower. So I have a very nagging doubt about the motivation of the politicians.
You're right, Atul.
I don't know. That's I believe, I think it is happening. They are very generous in giving freebies. But they're not that generous, as you have said, they're curtailing the research fund. They are curtailing the grants, various types. So, that's it. That I know, it is true that why, after liberation, even now, in fact, I have not yet completed the article. I am writing an article that several sources have brought out that income distribution has become income and wealth distribution has become highly skewed in India. And I'm trying to argue using that kind of, while there you have got multidimensional poor is 25%. There are about 10% people, 1% people who command a lot of wealth, huge amount of wealth. And then two things. One is that their share is very large. I forget the number now. I have got all the numbers. Both income and earn, they have got a huge share. 10% is together is much larger share than the 50% of the below. You know. So, in the income distribution is good. But what I am arguing, that this kind of, if you are allowing the skewed income distribution to increase further, it could it would trap India in a middle income. It will place India in a middle income trap. Why? Because very rich people, if you have money, when the growth takes place, more money goes to the rich through the value added. Value added is a profit, interest, wage, and then these are the value added. So what is increasing more in terms non-waste part? And waste part is decreasing in the organized sector. So as a result, it has become skewed. So if it is skewed, and the driver of the economy is not the rich people, driver of the economy, the consumption by the middle and poor people. Amongst the various drivers of the growth, consumption is the largest driver.
Yeah, middle and poor people.
Yeah, they're the drivers. So their middle income people income is compressed, and while the rich people income is increased. That about the other two comments, I do not have any idea why our alumni, actually it's a cultural factor perhaps. Our rich people do not want to leave everything for their progeny. But in US, Buffett, one of the richest persons there, he has kept only a small percentage of his wealth and gave largest part to the Milanda Bill Gates fund, given the charity. But in our country, and recently, that one of the richest persons in billionaire, he has given to his institution where he graduated. But this has not happened in India. I don't know, is it a cultural factor or something? We'll have to leave behind. But that also I cannot say, because Tirupati, if you find, the Tirupati accumulation in a year is larger than the budget of a small state. So people are donating to Tirupati, but people are not giving to the supporting the education of them. So these are the contrasts. I don't know whether they are the cultural factor or the. And research fund is curtailed. That is true. ICSR has no fund for promoting research anymore. So it is curtailed. So it is the priority of the government. For some reasons they have been. But other important thing is when planning commission was there, whatever transfer was made to the states, every transfer was made on a formula-based principle. It was a formula-based. But now all the transfers are made by the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance.
Yeah.
So Minister of Finance will allocate on the basis of I don't know what criteria. So as a result, it is not unthinkable that sectors like education would suffer. Research grants will not be available. And they will ask you to get the money from the public sector, private sector, money from abroad. That is what they are saying. So, this was the last point that you made, the observation that you made is the fund from collaboration is not coming because, see, all the fund, how do you expect that? Collaboration research, if they results in some patent, then you can have a share. But the collaboration is only nominal, not effective collaboration, nothing of the sort happens. So in our case, it's more nominal rather than effective collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very explanation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sorry?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Manoj, would you like to say, Usman, would you like to have? Then I'll give answer to Professor Sharma, who has joined us.
Yes, sir. I would like to add something. That is, so far as the number of seats available for particularly MBBS, IIT, IIM, etc., this is much lesser than the number of students who are aspiring for these kind of courses. And as a result, a large number of students are forced to go abroad and leaving India. For example, the picture has become very clear just after the Russia-Ukraine war, when thousands of our Indian students came from Ukraine. So I think if we are, the government really thinks that our population, our people should be more and more productive or skilled enough to contribute to our economy, then such kind of institutions needs to be increased. And you were right, sir, when government is or politicians are engaged or very much happy to give the free buys such as scooter, scooty, motorcycle, laptop, etc., and they are less interested to contribute for the educational institutions. So these are the issues. So can we, is there any authority or any body where such kind of issues can be raised so that the government is more cautious or more vigilant regarding the present crisis of higher education, and such kind of policies of the government can be changed towards the improvement of higher educational institutions? Thank you, sir.
And there is only to public mobilization, that's all.
Public, yeah, public education.
Public education.
Boro, you have any question? Boro?
No, sir. I have no any question. I am very happy to join with you, sir.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yes, sir, you have mentioned about the...
Usman,
yes, sir.
Yeah, Usman, yeah.
You have mentioned about the voucher system of education abroad. Voucher system. In some countries, the voucher system is prevalent. For example, it may be in health, etc., it may be feasible. In our country, to what extent it is feasible, sir? Voucher system. In higher education, especially in higher education.
Sorry, I couldn't get it.
Is there any feasibility? Is there any feasibility?
Voucher system, how far voucher system is feasible in our country?
Voucher system.
I can't offhand, I can't say that it is not really feasible, but I don't know really much about it. Sorry.
So what is the experience of the countries which have adopted this voucher system? You mentioned
voucher system, Brazilian country, Brazil, for instance, Brazil has used voucher. They have that is one of the instruments to equalize the opportunities. And they say it is quite successful. That they say. But it all depends on the voucher, at what level you are giving. So if it is at the higher level, again the problem is the people who are really poor, they have not been able to come to that level to get the voucher.
Yes.
So if you have a very good public, as I say, free public education, good quality public education, probably more and more people, even from the poor segment, would be able to avail this kind of opportunity. That's okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Sharma, you can perform the role. Yeah.
So I would like to.
No. The other RC Sharma is going to thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Actually, I got late today because there was some training program going on the university, and I just entered home. I'm yet to change my dress and do other things. So, thank you, Professor Sharma. It is very nice to listen to you. And definitely this field of finance of higher education and its social dimensions, in addition to the contribution to the national development, they are really very, very crucial for us. And particularly if we see the kind of market forces which work, whether it is any industry dominating or any political thought dominating or some social movement kind of thing which comes up, it certainly affects the educational systems. And then there are issues of tuition fee, the revenue generation, then the expenditure on those kind of things. These are really very, very important dimensions of the educational system, and especially in higher education, when we need to find that who is going to pay, whether it is self-financing or government funded or endowment or something, whatever this kind of thing. So, sir, are we closing the session or we have?
Yeah, closing. Because he has to leave for another meeting.
Okay.
So I think because he has meeting at 8:45.
Oh, yeah.
We are exceed one minute, so we can thank him.
I
Thank him.
On behalf of all our participants, Professor Sharma, I thank you so much, and we look forward to listen to you again. Your time permits.
Sure. No, it was a pleasure for me to invite to participate.
Okay, bye everyone. Take care.
I also learned for quite a bit of things, and I thank Professor G.D. Sharma, who is a friend of mine, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night, sir. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Good night, sir.